Hey
Hey guys,
guys, I'm Jess,
I'm Kira.
And I'm Tiffany,
and welcome to the Rift Podcast.
where we discuss relevant issues for teens.
Relevant issues for teens. Get it? It's the acronym RIFT.
Today's Rift is social media, which obviously, as teenagers, is an incredibly relevant issue. I feel like most of us use social media, we're surrounded by social media, and it's so accessible to us all. So, I'm going to kick things off by asking you guys, how much time do you estimate you spend on social media per week? Personally, I don't have social media, so for me, it's 0 hours, but I'm interested to know about you guys.
So if we're factoring in social media, would you consider things like YouTube platforms, Discord? I mean, I know you have Discord and you said you have no social
Yeah.
media, so
Oh, I was
not
first
really.
thinking about it like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but yeah, I think we can include those things too, of course.
Yeah, I mean, for those platforms that you just mentioned, such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I don't really spend too much time on it. Instagram, I only recently downloaded the app and created an account, and it was really because I found out how all of these school clubs were happening and I didn't know about it. I was asking my friends just how did you find out about these clubs? And the answer was always Instagram. So that was when I downloaded the app. And even now, sometimes I don't have the app on my phone or it's not on my home screen, so I don't spend too much time on it. Twitter, I have, but it's mostly for news. I don't think I spend too much time on it. But other than that, like the hours would be much higher on YouTube and
Yeah,
private messaging apps like Discord and just messages.
that's actually really interesting because I know a lot of adults think that we spend so much time on social media. So it's interesting to know that from an actual teenager, quite the opposite is true. What about you, Tiff?
For me, like the only social media apps I use are Instagram and YouTube as well. For personally, I usually use Instagram just to get a laugh or just spend some time like to relax and all that. I spend around like half an hour to 1 hour on Instagram every day, which is actually more than YouTube, which I find pretty surprising because like before, like a year before COVID, I usually just went on YouTube to like look at comedy. But now I feel like everything's transitioned into Instagram and the videos are a lot shorter, so it's becoming more addicting for me.
Yeah, like for me, actually, sometimes my face is literally glued to YouTube and I feel like I want to do something, but I'm just stuck watching videos. And we see all these new articles coming out, new research reports, and like these crazy stories about teenagers who became addicted to their phones, became addicted to social media. So, from you guys' personal experience, do you feel that social media is addictive?
Well, going back to what Tiffany said, I think it's interesting that you say that Instagram has shorter videos. So in that way, just all of these posts from all different people, you get that from social media. So that's what makes it addicting. And it has that possibility of being addicting because there's just so much. And for me, YouTube is my main one that I spend my time on devices. It can easily be 5 hours on the day there's no school over the break, many YouTube hours, because it's just when there's nothing to do, there's always something to do or look at on social media. So it can definitely be addictive.
Yeah, it can absolutely, like once you open the app, it's a never-ending process. Um, and like I said, I range from 30 minutes to like an hour. So the times that there are an hour, like it's really just mindlessly scrolling or just watching. So for me, it can get addictive sometimes. And back to what Kira said, on YouTube, the recommendation system is addicting and weird in a way because a lot of the videos are like out of your interest or whatever, but it's clickbait, so you click on it, and that's just how the hours add up. So
Yeah,
definitely I've experienced addiction before. But Right now, I think I've been managing it well, at least in my perspective, I am.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna transition this into social interactions because just like you guys were saying with the short videos, the recommendations, I feel like social interactions and friendship are yet another reason to, spend that extra half an hour on an app or to pull up Instagram just because I feel like in this day and age, social interaction and friendship is so dependent on social media, especially because we can't meet in person right now for obvious reasons. So how much of a role do you guys think technology has played in your social interactions and friendships?
I would say right now, especially if we're talking about during the pandemic, through technology is really my social interaction. It's all there. Even with you guys right now, it's through technology. But if we're talking about things like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, those have challenges when you're trying to socially interact because I just personally don't think you can really get very deep and develop such a true and genuine friendship over that. It's harder because you don't have that in-person face-to-face connection. And oftentimes when you have a large following, you're posting and it goes to all of them. So it might not get too personal or it could just get superficial.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, I mean, I know you were getting into this, but do you prefer interacting with someone in person or on social media? I think you made your answer pretty clear, but I just want you to clarify for our listeners.
I would say in person, but sometimes social media is great for people you might not know very well or have that many chances to meet in person. So social media is great for talking to people and just interacting with them when you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I personally as well prefer in-person interactions. It's just nice to actually see someone's face and, be in their aura, feel their vibe. These things you're missing out on social media. What about you, Tiff?
Yeah, I also definitely prefer.
Yeah, of course. And while I think that interacting with people on social media can be a great thing, like you guys said, it can really help us maintain friendships during these tumultuous times. But then again, we hear all these crazy stories about companies like Facebook taking data from users. And of course, there's predators out on the internet that misuse these communication platforms. So, what are your thoughts on that? And does that make you feel any less comfortable when using social media?
Recently, I've watched this documentary. It's on Netflix. It's called The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it does tackle these issues of social media further than just teenage addiction. And one idea that I remember changing us into a tool, into a product, whereas usually we're consumers and we're the ones buying the product. But on Instagram and on these platforms, they take advantage with these ads that we're constantly faced with. And then we become the product that they're selling to these companies that have things to sell to us. Like we're customers that they're really taking advantage. So it definitely is concerning, but it's almost unavoidable. Like if we're on social media for such long hours, there's bound to be information about us and it can almost be catered exactly to who you are. So these people might know exactly who you are. Um, but I think having faith in people.
Definitely.
It's actually interesting you mentioned that documentary because it reminds me of a book I read in my English class called Feed by M.T. Anderson, where it's like in this dystopian society and like people have this feed chip in their brain that like gives them access to the entire technology world or whatever. And the company that sells these chips, they actually collect data on that and they market like certain products, fancy technological products, and these people buy it. The kind of like the blind truth behind this entire book is that they're really nothing more than just data. They're not really considered anything else that could be contributed to society. So I thought that was really interesting. Like Kira said, a lot of the data collecting, it's inevitable, if anything just seems suspicious in my mind, like if they ask for my birthday or my social security number and all that, I obviously would not give it to them. But certain things like my email, uh, less personal things, I feel like I would have to give that away, just to enjoy social media. But I guess, just things that can be avoidable in terms of data collecting, I try my best to do so.
Yeah, so between all this data collecting, the whole privacy dilemma, predators, influencers, expectations, filters, do you guys feel that social media has had any effect whatsoever on your mental health?
Me personally, it hasn't affected my mental health in that way. And really partly the reason why I wouldn't use that social media that often is because I don't want it to affect my mental health, and I simply don't see the importance in it really. So for me, YouTube has always been something great that I could entertain myself with and really explore my interests. But I'm interested to see what you have to say, Tiffany.
I mentioned this before, saying how like I usually use social media as just something that to pass time with. And time to time, I do see, like, back to our previous episode on fitness, these perfect bodies, fitness influencers. I do see that. Personally, I'm lucky that I don't experience like body image issues in regards to that mental health aspect. But I do know people that have gone through that, and it is a real issue. And um, it's definitely something that we should pay attention to. And also on YouTube, I guess my mental health hasn't really been affected too much. Again, also YouTube is just a way for me to get a laugh, and also to explore my interests. So luckily, I haven't had too many issues.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that from both of you because I know that it's a problem that many people experience on social media. And this is a bit of a tangent, but I would also like to add that it affects people's mental health in ways that we might not even think about or recognize. Like, I know I watched a very, very disturbing documentary actually about children's videos on YouTube and videos targeted at toddlers, 1 year olds, 2 year olds, 3 year olds, and these videos are targeted to make them think a certain way. It's targeted to make them keep clicking and clicking and clicking, and it almost alters their brain and changes them mentally to keep clicking on those videos and to stay attached to the screen. And there actually are some very disturbing videos out there that tell children to do terrible things and make children disconnect from their parents. And I think that's definitely social media in that way and many others has a huge influence. So I'm just curious, have you guys ever felt influenced by social media to buy a product or feel a certain way?
Probably, honestly. Like, I can't right now think of something very specific, or I guess just how many of us find out about products that we eventually end up purchasing is online through social media. So definitely all of that. And that includes regular ads, but also the people you follow, these influencers. They might be sponsored, or just the things that they have, the things that they wear, that will all influence people who follow them and see that. And I'm actually thinking of writing a paper in my class about consumer spending. And one trend I'm going to look into is social media and how it really affects people in their spending on these products and how that might fuel a sense of materialism. So definitely, social media has impacted really and can have a really big potential on impacting just the choices that people make and what they buy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when Jess asked the question, I actually thought of a little bit of a different aspect. There has been the Stop Asian Hate movement and all that. And a lot of the people I follow and just in the public general, I've seen a lot of disturbing videos of people attacking Asian seniors and people. So that's definitely influenced me to become more aware of what's happening in my community. Like I've been reading the news more, um, And I think although it's unfortunate that it's happening, definitely I'm grateful that I'm more aware of it. And I feel like without social media or any kind of news outlet, I don't think I would have found out about that.
Yeah, so today I think we've discussed a lot of good things that are good and bad about social media. So I'm very curious, based on what we've discussed today, overall, do you guys think social media is a good or bad thing?
Social media, I would have to say, is a good thing, but it's also really just because I can't imagine a world in which we just took away social media. I don't think that's practical or possible because a lot is through social media. Many great things are through social media. Just like very simply getting a job and finding these opportunities for yourself, that's through social media. But there are definitely bads, as we've discussed, these privacy concerns and how it might affect your mental health negatively if you're seeing friends doing things and it's just parts that they might not want to show. So it's just that and not being able to see it. But yeah, overall, social media is good because of how Tiffany said it can spread that awareness. People wouldn't know about things in the news, things that are going on that are really relevant to our lives and to just our country as a whole if it weren't for social media. But at the same time, a con with social media and how it really caters to you, who you are as a person, is that you might be aware of the things that you want to be aware about. And it's really, this is actually what is really concerning because you don't know what you don't know. So you're not aware of what you're not aware about. So this can lead to political polarization, which is something we didn't discuss. And it's just something on a whole different level, how we're aware of many interests and you can keep exploring your interests and all of that. But things that we might not agree with, it's just completely out of our feed because it's in the algorithm to only put things that you would click on and agree with. So I've given a bunch of pros and cons. It's like that for me. It's very confusing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, Kara. I also think social media overall is a good thing and it's a necessary thing because in this era, everything is very technological and we're most likely going to be veering towards that more technological advancements. Um, I mean, Kira really just said everything. Uh, it's good in the aspect that you can spread awareness. It's just a much more convenient way to communicate with others. Um, but it can be a bad way because there's these uh, unrealistic expectations or like realities of people's lives, and it's led to disagreements on opinions and beliefs. But I think in order to have social media, we need to have both good and bad for it to really be effective in society.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was actually, before you guys spoke, I was leaning towards that social media was a bad thing because it couldn't help but cross my mind that for hundreds of thousands of years before maybe the past 20 or 10 years or so, there was no social media whatsoever. And I feel like something that always haunts me when going on to social media and seeing others on social media, which we didn't really get a chance to go into today, is it's whatever you do on social media is locked in stone. And I think there are definitely some negative things like that, like privacy concerns, predators, and I think it creates a almost a culture of showing off and gluttony. But definitely there are some pros, and I think they need to be taken into consideration. Definitely, I love how it can connect people, like you guys were saying early in this episode. It can help maintain friendships, it can help raise awareness about different issues, and it can help you learn about different clubs and things in your community. So I'm definitely conflicted about this. So I think we've had a great episode today. We've covered a lot about this rift. So do you guys have any final thoughts to share with our listeners before the conclusion of the episode?
I guess something I want to add is that for me and Kira, we might say that uh, it's overall good, but I can understand if some people say that it's overall bad, because it depends on which area of social media you use. Like, for example, if you were to become like a social media influencer and all that, and you're trying to gain inspo from different influencers and trying to find your own way to be an influencer, I think in that aspect, it can turn bad in many ways. One, given like I said, the unrealistic expectations. So I would say personally, the good aspects of social media outweigh the bad ones. But like I said, I would totally understand that if just certain aspects of social media are just bad, there's not really too much of the good things.
Right. And as Tiffany said, social media can be good or bad. And I think it's really about using it in the right way. So that includes choosing the right people to follow and be influenced by, right? These influencers, you might not realize it, but whatever post and that you look at, it could influence you in very subtle ways. And just over time, it builds up to build the person that you are. And it's also using it in the right way involves keeping in mind that it's not 100% real life, in that it can just be a snapshot of someone's life, a snapshot of different certain events that you're looking at. And social media, you can use it in many great ways. You can explore your interests. So I would advise our listeners to take advantage of social media, looking up the things that you might be interested in, and in person, you might not have those opportunities to really explore those or find out about them. But although so much is on social media, you can keep scrolling and keep refreshing. There's always going to be something that you can spend more time on. And that's actually something I think is a charm of TikTok, a platform we didn't mention today. Social media is not your whole life. You can exercise, as we mentioned in episode 2. And as a message to our listeners, really, we can all start reclaiming our personal autonomy. You don't owe anything to these big tech companies, and you certainly do not owe your followers anything either. So just because you don't post something, it doesn't mean that the memory's not there. If anything, it becomes more worthwhile and meaningful. And maybe the next time that you go on a trip or have something interesting to share, try sending the photo to a group chat with your closest friends, and you might see that real conversations start to happen.
Yeah, I'd also like to add one more thing to our listeners that use social media, to be aware of certain privacy rights, as we mentioned in the beginning of the episode. If someone suspicious asks you for your social security number, obviously you should not give them your social security number. Um, just try to not share your personal information as much as possible. I know on Instagram, sometimes they ask for your birthday and your phone number and all that. But those are optional. You don't have to add them. Just wanted to raise that.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think that brings us to the conclusion of our episode today. I think as I was getting into before, we covered a lot and we really delved deep into this rift, and it was really fun to hear you guys' opinions and really talk through this. So, bye, and thanks for listening.
Yep.